I woke up in the recovery room with a searing, white-hot pain blooming across my lower abdomen and a 6-inch bandage that shouldn't have been there, only to realize that while I was unconscious, my own parents had authorized a procedure I never consented to, effectively changing the course of my life forever. I was supposed to be in for a simple, routine appendectomy, a quick in-and-out procedure to deal with a sudden bout of inflammation. But when the anesthesia haze finally cleared, the lead surgeon wouldn't look me in the eye, and my mother was clutching her purse with a look of smug satisfaction that made my blood run cold. Have you ever been betrayed by the very people who are supposed to protect you, only to find out they'd been planning that betrayal for years? Tell me, if you woke up to find your bodily autonomy had been traded away by your family like a piece of property, would you ever be able to forgive them? Or would you burn every bridge you had left? To understand how I ended up on that operating table, you have to understand the family I was born into. My parents, Eleanor and Richard, were the pillars of our local community, wealthy, traditional, and deeply obsessed with their legacy. I was their only daughter, the miracle child born after years of struggle, and with that title came a suffocating level of expectation. From the time I was a little girl, my life was mapped out. The right schools, the right social circles, and eventually, the right marriage to a man of their choosing. They didn't just want me to be successful. They wanted me to be a vessel for their continued status. I grew up in a house where my opinions were tolerated only if they aligned with theirs, and any deviation was met with a cold, calculated emotional withdrawal. By the time I was 23, I was starting to push back. I had finished my degree in environmental science, not the business degree my father wanted, and I was making plans to move across the country for a research fellowship. They hated it. They saw my independence as a direct threat to the dynasty they were trying to build. The tension reached a boiling point about 6 months ago when they introduced me to the perfect candidate, a man named Julian, who was the son of one of my father's business associates. Julian was everything my parents loved and everything I loathed: arrogant, entitled, and clearly viewing me as a trophy to be won. When I told my parents I had no interest in him and that I was moving forward with my plans to move away, the atmosphere in the house turned lethal. They didn't scream or shout. That wasn't their way. Instead, they became eerily quiet, watching me with a sort of clinical detachment that I should have recognized as a warning sign. Then, 2 weeks ago, I woke up in the middle of the night with a stabbing pain in my side. I was doubled over, barely able to breathe. My parents acted fast, which I thought was out of love. They rushed me to the hospital, and within hours, I was being prepped for surgery to remove my appendix. Because I was in such agony and drifting in and out of consciousness from the pain meds, I didn't question why my mother was whispering so intensely with our longtime family physician in the hallway, or why my father was signing a stack of paperwork with a pen that seemed to move with a strange, purposeful weight. When I finally came to, the first thing I felt wasn't the relief of a successful surgery, but a deep, aching wrongness. The incision was too low, too long, and the recovery felt different than what the nurses had described. When the doctor finally came in for the post-op check, he was evasive. It wasn't until I demanded to see my chart and threatened to call a lawyer that the truth came out. During the appendectomy, complications were cited, and under the broad emergency consent my parents had signed, they had authorized a secondary elective procedure. My parents had convinced the doctor, who was a close friend of the family and apparently had his own price, that I had been suffering from chronic issues that required a partial hysterectomy. They had literally stolen my ability to have children of my own, under the guise of medical necessity, because they knew I was planning to leave, and they wanted to ensure that if I ever did return to the fold, I would be fixed and focused solely on the life they wanted for me, or perhaps they simply wanted to punish me for refusing the marriage they'd arranged. I was devastated, broken, and filled with a rage so intense it felt like it would consume me. So that's the situation I was in. I was lying in a hospital bed, recovering from a surgery I didn't want, realizing my parents had physically altered my body to control my future. Before I tell you how I got my revenge and what happened when I finally confronted them, I want you to pause and comment below. What would you have done in my shoes? Would you have called the police immediately, or would you have waited to gather evidence to take them down completely? I really want to know your thoughts on this, because I felt like I was losing my mind. After the initial shock wore off, a cold, hard clarity settled over me. I didn't scream. I didn't cry in front of them. When Alina and Richard walked into my room with those fake sympathetic smiles, I played the part of the grieving, confused daughter. I told them the doctor had explained the unfortunate necessity of the procedure and that I was just grateful to be alive. I watched the relief wash over them, the smugness of people who thought they had won. But while they were busy patting themselves on the back, I was working. I used my recovery time to secretly record every conversation we had. I got my mother to admit on tape that they had done what was best for me because I wasn't making sound decisions about my future. I contacted a lawyer outside of their social circle, and with the help of a sympathetic nurse who had seen the suspicious way the paperwork was handled, I gathered every scrap of evidence regarding the doctor's malpractice and my parents' coercion. The day I was discharged, I didn't go back to their house. I had my things pre-packed and moved to a secure location with the help of a friend they didn't know I had. 2 weeks later, the storm hit. I filed a massive civil lawsuit against the hospital and the doctor, but the real blow was the criminal charges I pushed for regarding the falsification of medical records and battery. Because I had the recordings of my parents admitting they pressured the doctor into the procedure for non-medical reasons, the case was airtight. The scandal rocked our community. My father's business partners dropped him overnight to avoid the PR nightmare, and my mother, the socialite of the year, became a pariah. They lost their status, their money was drained by legal fees, and the doctor lost his license and faced prison time. When I saw them in court, they looked small. For the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of them. They had taken something from me that I can never get back, but in the process, they gave me the one thing they never wanted me to have: total, scorched earth freedom. I moved away, changed my name, and started that research fellowship. The scar is still there, a 6-inch reminder of what I survived, but it's also a reminder that I am the only one who gets to decide what happens to me now. Looking back, I realized that blood doesn't make you family. Respect and consent do. I lost a part of myself on that operating table, but I gained a life that belongs entirely to me. If there is a lesson here, it's that some people will go to unimaginable lengths to maintain control, even over those they claim to love. If you ever feel like something is wrong, trust your gut, because the people closest to you can sometimes be the ones you should fear the most. Like this video if you were on my side and think I did the right thing by taking them to court. Subscribe for more stories like this, where we dive deep into the darkest parts of family secrets and personal survival. Share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section. Did the punishment fit the crime, or should I have gone even further? I'll see you all in the next story.